Hello and welcome to another Every Tuesday tutorial. In this week's tutorial, we're creating some messy watercolor foliage directly in Procreate. So what you see on screen is exactly what we're going to be creating together. As always, the color palette is entirely free. Just tap on the link in the video description and you can download and install it. For this entire piece, I'll be using my paid set of watercolor illustration brushes, and I'll leave a link on screen and in the video description to those as well. I'm going to start by creating a brand new canvas that's 1500 pixels by 1500 pixels at 300 dpi. I work in the display P3 color profile, but if you're on an older iPad and don't have access to that, then the default sRGB color profile is perfectly fine. Okay, I've got my canvas all ready to go, and the first thing I want to do is give myself an area where all this foliage is going to live, and it's all going to be centered as well. So in order to do that, I actually just draw a circle with any brush that you have. I've got my watercolor illustration brushes loaded in, and I've got a sketching pencil brush, so I'm just going to grab that and grab the darkest color in our color palette, and I'm just going to draw a circle, hold it, wait till it snaps, hit edit shape, and change it to a circle. And now I can just grab it. And if you have uniform down here with snapping toggled on right there, then I can move this until I see those yellow crosshairs. And then I know that it's directly in the center of my canvas. So let's see that size. I think I want to come down just a little bit smaller. So reduce the size of my circle and then recenter it. Once you have your circle, something that I like to do is also add in just my crosshairs for the vertical and horizontal, just so I have them and I have an idea in mind as I go around the circle. You'll kind of see why once we get started with drawing all of our elements. This is totally optional. I like having it on though. So I'm going to hit the wrench, go to canvas, drawing guide, toggle that on, and then hit drawing guide. And where it says grid size, just toggle it all the way up, and then you'll just have those two crosshairs, and then hit done. And now I've got these lines right here to help guide me as I'm working my way around the circle. So I'm going to create a brand new layer. This is just my circle template, so I can label that template. I'm going to start with creating my elements that are going to appear the densest in my layout first. So these ones are going to be my teal foliage elements. So I'm just going to create a brand new layer and then rename this one teal. So come over to your colors, grab the teal color, and we're going to draw the stems for them first, and then we'll attach all of our leaves to those stems. So I'm going to use my round liner brush for the stems, and the size of this is 7%. And what I'm going to do is just draw some branches that come up, and some of them can break the circle and other ones will fall right at the circle. Okay, and then on these branches, I'm going to draw additional branches. Okay, once you have all of your stems drawn, now we're going to start putting some leaves on them. And I'm just noticing that this one's way higher than all the rest of them. So I'm going to erase that away, just bring it down a little bit. Okay, so from here, I'm going to create a brand new layer right above my teal layer and just call this teal leaves. And I'm going to grab my medium paint round brush for this. And for these leaves, they're just going to be upside down teardrop leaves. So I like making the outline and then filling it in without lifting up my stylus as I do it. You could also go little pressure and then lots of pressure and draw them like that as well. You can also attach directly on the stem if you want to fill it out even more, but we've got a lot of stems here, so I'm going to take care of the tops of the stems first. Once you have all of your leaves drawn in here, and it's totally up to you how dense you want to make this or what type of leaf shape, you can change it up however you would like. So now that I've got this first layer all done, I'm going to group those two layers together. That way they stay together. I'm going to label this one teal. And then the next element I'm going to drop in are some yellow elements. So I'm going to create a brand new layer, label this one yellow. So this one's going to be kind of like large eucalyptus. So once again, I'm going to draw stems around, but these are going to be single stems. Let me switch to my yellow or orangish color. And I'm going to grab my round liner brush and just draw these here and there. These ones are not going to be as dense or all the way around like the teal leaves were. So there's just going to be a few here and there. And I like putting a couple together just to break it up a little bit so it doesn't look too symmetrical around here. So I think that's a decent amount. Let me add another one right next to that one. So you can see I'm not going quite as far out with these ones. It's really important to change up the length of these and the scale of your items because there's so much foliage that's all bunched up here. It can be really confusing to the eye because it's got so much to focus on. So that's one way to help your eye see all the different elements, is to change scale and length and shape. So we're going to return back to our medium paint round brush. I'm just going to leave these leaves along with the yellow stems because we don't have as many here. So if we mess up, we can just erase if we need to. So the very top of it's going to be kind of like an oval, and then I'm going to do like these blobs, and they're going to change size and shape a little bit all the way down. So that's kind of what it is. It's like a beaded necklace almost. But from far away, it's going to look like leaves that are kind of turning in the light. And you can also change the angle that you draw them at too. Once you have those ones in there, I think this was my top. Okay, next we're going to create a brand new layer, and the next element we're going to draw in are just some large blue elements. So I'm going to name this blue, and I'm going to go grab my blue color, so it's the second one. Once again, we're going to return back to our round liner brush, and these ones are going to be connected. So these ones are going to come up at the same length as the teal and also at the same length as the yellow ones. So they're kind of the middle ground elements here. And these ones are not going to be around everything. It's going to be sparse, just like the yellow elements. That's what I'm trying to say. So there's a few more of these ones than the yellow ones. And what we're going to do is just grab our heavy paint round brush because we want these ones to be a little more obvious because they're kind of mixing color-wise with the teal. So these ones are just going to have a big circle on top. So these ones would be like buds of flowers that haven't bloomed yet. You can see that I'm trying to change up the size and the shape quite a bit here. So I've got the teardrop shape for the teal. I've got circles for these, I guess, flower buds you can call them. And then these eucalyptus elements are more ovalish. So far we've got 3 different styles of leaves. The next one we're going to do is similar to the eucalyptus, only it's all going to be round instead of oval, and it's going to be really, really dark in color. So I'm going to create a brand new layer. I'm going to label this one purple, and we're going to grab our purple color right here. It's the third one. And for this one, I'm going to use my round liner brush again. We can reduce the size a little bit down to 6%. So for this one, I want, once we drop in the card that's in the center, that's going to house whatever message we want to convey, this is going to be around the top right corner and the bottom left corner. If you want it to go all the way around, you can totally do that. I just want to change this up a little bit. That way there's a little bit more variety than just everything coming around constantly with all these elements. So it breaks it up a little bit. It makes it seem a little more unique. Another thing I wanted to mention is if you're familiar with rotational symmetry, you can totally use that for this project. For this one, I wanted it to seem very different in every single quadrant. So that's why I chose not to do rotational symmetry here. But if you want to save time, you can totally do that. All right, I am going to put a few of these. These ones are just going to be one line up, and they're all going to be kind of bunched up in this corner. And this is where these quadrants, those crosshairs that I put in, this is where they come in handy because I know I want them in the top right and then the bottom left. So now I can come over here and keep them, I'm coming within the circle too, so I'm paying attention to that they're beneath this circle line. So I've got kind of 2 guides going here. And these ones are going to be dense, but they're all limited to those sections. Now I'm going to come back to my heavy paint round brush, and for these ones, it's really simple. These are circles, so I'm just going to pop a circle on each side, and this is a pressure sensitive brush, so as you go down, you can change the amount of pressure you're putting on it to vary up the size of these circles. Now we can kind of preview how everything is looking by dropping in our little card that's going to go on top. So let's turn off the template. I don't want that in the way. We can leave the crosshairs for right now. I'm going to create a brand new layer and I label this one card. And I'm going to change my color to white. So just double tap where the white is and that will give you true white. I'm going to come over to my selection tool right here. Down here, choose rectangle. And I'm just going to draw out the size of the card that I want. So that looks pretty good. This is my way of making sure everything is feeling good for my layout. And once I have my rectangle, I can just drag the white in it and it will fill it in. And now I can deselect it. And now I can center this card and I can see the scale of it compared to everything else. It feels pretty good. I think I want it to be just a little bit smaller so I can see more of these elements that are around the edge. So let's make it smaller and then pop it right in the center again. And I like zooming out too to see how it looks from far away before I commit my changes. All right, so tap on your cursor and now we're all set. And we can also turn off our crosshairs now. So hit the wrench, drawing guide, just toggle it off. And now that is what our layout looks like so far. And I'm noticing these big blue dots are really big up here, but I like the size of them around the rest of it. So I'm going to fix this while I'm thinking of it. Let me switch back to my blue, come back to the blue layer, grab my eraser and just erase this top off. All right, I think that's a better size now. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is just draw in some line art. There's a lot of solid shapes here, even though they're textured, they are solid. I like adding in, whenever I can, some kind of sketchy elements, and that breaks up the texture of everything and gives another piece of visual interest, something else your eye can focus on that really balances everything out so it doesn't feel too much like the same thing everywhere. So I'm going to return back to my purple color. I'm going to create a brand new layer underneath my card layer, and I'm going to put these right above my teal layer. So I'm going to tap on the teal group, create a brand new layer, and this one's going to be called line art. And I'm going to grab my sketching pencil brush for this, so I've got that other dimension of texture on top of everything else. And the size of this is 5%. So because we have our eucalyptus, the circular eucalyptus in the top right and the bottom left, now I'm going to do top left, bottom right. So I have this purple consistent all the way around, but it's different elements. So for this line art, I'm kind of focusing on wherever I've got some gaps or white space, like this corner right here could use something. And there's a few gaps over here that I want to fill in too. So this is really loose. I don't think about it too much. I draw a line up and then just these really organic leaf shapes. It can be however you would like, however precise you would like, or sketchier feeling like what I've got going on here. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same thing over here in this corner. Now that I've got both of these corners all drawn in, you can see everything's looking really clean, but the title of this tutorial was Messy Watercolor Foliage. So I want to show you a trick for making your foliage look really messy, but having control over it. So instead of smudging all of your individual pieces, there's a really easy way to make it look messier than it actually is and to control that messiness. So the way that we're going to do this is by coming all the way to the very top of everything, create a brand new layer. I'm going to label this one Yellow Mess. So I'm going to grab my yellow and I'm going to come over to my dense wash brush. And on some of these yellow elements, I'm just going to put a couple marks here and there. So it looks like these ones are a little smudgier, and I can reduce the size too if I want it to be a little closer. So now these look like they're smudged, but they aren't. It's just this layer. But it instantly looks like it's a little bit messier. And you can make it even more believable by changing the blend mode of this to multiply. So toggle this up to multiply, and it will blend more like real watercolor with the element beneath it. So that is the yellow mess. Now we're going to add in some extra mess for everything else. So you can go over top of some of your elements. Since yellow was the kind of standout color here, you notice that one right away because all the other colors are kind of in the same vein. The blue, the purple, and the teal. These ones I'm kind of going to make messy all together, but I wanted the yellow to not get too messy with the other ones so it didn't look too dirty. So now I'm going to create a brand new layer, label this one Mess, and this one will just be our general mess layer. And we're going to do the exact same thing. Change the blend mode to multiply on this. And we can start with, let's start with a teal color first. And you can change up the size of your dense wash brush too. And you can just do little marks here and there. I don't like going overboard, but I want it to be obvious still. So always focus your messiness on areas where that element exists. Now I can switch to my purple. I'm going to reduce the size since these elements are a little bit smaller. And I can stamp it, I can draw with it and smudge it. I'm gonna make this a little bigger. It's actually really fun, so it's hard to not go overboard with it. And then the last one is our blue. So let's switch to blue. So I think that's a fair amount of messiness now. And then the next thing I want to do is add some splatter, some paint splatter. So we'll create a new layer, label this one splatter, and I'll just go through the same colors again. I'm going to use the rounded splatter, and I like changing the size of it too as you're coming around with different colors. So we'll start with this as a size for the blue and then switch to the purple. Let's make this one a little smaller. I'm going to come down to 4% for the purple and kind of keep it around these smaller elements. And then we'll go to teal. This one I'm going to make a little bigger, 7%. And then we'll finish off with the yellow and make that small. We'll come down to 4% again and keep it near those yellow elements. We've got a lot of messiness now on here, and the next thing we want to do is add some watercolor paper texture. That way it looks like it was actually painted on real watercolor paper. So in order to do that, you want to have everything underneath the card layer. All of these are going to be affected by the watercolor paper texture. So we're going to create a brand new layer right above splatter, but beneath the card layer, and label this one texture. Okay, change your color to black. So double tap where the black is. You're going to come down here to the medium tooth paper texture. It's the last one on the bottom, and this is a paper pattern brush. So you want to zoom all the way out of your canvas. You want to make sure the size is up to max, and then in one stroke, don't lift up your stylus until you're done. You're just going to paint this texture in, and you can see that texture appearing. And now if I zoom in here, you can see we've got that really pretty watercolor paper texture right on top of everything. But to have it blend a little more seamlessly to everything that's underneath it, we're just going to change the blend mode of this to multiply. And that's all set for our watercolor foliage elements. And then the last thing you want to do is just add whatever message or phrase or greeting that you would like on your card. So I'm just going to write good morning on it. So I want this to be on top of the card. So create a brand new layer, and you can label this one lettering. You could also use typable text if you would like for this. That's totally fine. I'm going to grab my purple color and come up to my round liner brush to write out my message. Okay, now I can center everything up. So that's how to create messy watercolor foliage directly in Procreate. If you're interested in learning more about watercolor foliage and florals in Procreate, I actually have a full course on how to do exactly that. I'll leave a link on screen and in the video description. Once again, links to everything mentioned in this tutorial are right in the video description, including the free color palette and my paid set of watercolor illustration brushes. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please hit the like button, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you can be notified of new tutorials just like this one in the future. For more Procreate tutorials and freebies, head on over to my site, every-tuesday.com. You can also find me over on Instagram. My handle is everytuesday. If you try this out and post it there, I would love it if you tag me. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week.